Evening, everyone, and thank you once again for. Sorry, I'm just fixing this. Is everything good, Steve?
Yes.
Yeah? Oh, sorry. Thank you for spending your time here with me tonight. I know your time is precious, and I really do appreciate it. So we are going to get started, but first I want to call out some actions that we had talked about last week. So last week we discussed the top 5 natural ways to stay healthy and to keep your kidneys healthy. And there are a few comments that I want to call out this week and to kind of follow up and to see how those actions went. So the first one is Dawn. And Dawn, you commented that you were going to set a timer to go off every hour, and you are going to do some sort of movement every hour. So I want to hear from you. I'm curious as to follow up on how that went. And first is kind of a two-part. These are two-part questions, but first is what did you do to set that timer? Did you set on your phone alarms to go off every hour? Or did you download an app? There are certain apps like Stand Up. That's a good app to go off every hour. But I want to hear from you what worked. And second part is, what did you do? So every hour, what was that movement that you did, that you incorporated into your week last week? I know I shared a few ideas last week, but I want to hear how that went for you and what you chose. The second person I would like to call out is Lisa. And Lisa, you mentioned last week that when you have a lot of stress, it kind of builds up in your body and you start feeling it in your shoulders. And that when you feel that, you take a walk or you go for a swim. So Lisa, I'd like to hear from you. What tells you that you're ready for a walk or a swim? How do you know that feeling? How do you know that tension in your shoulders are there? Is it something you just go every couple of days? You just go for a walk or go for a swim? Or do you notice, do you listen to your body and it tells you when? So I'm curious to hear from you, Lisa, on that. And secondly, how did you feel this week from going for a walk or going from a swim? So essentially just comment below and let us know. And the third person is Janice, also known as my mom, but she is also in this, we're all in this together, so she decided to drink 8 ounces of water every morning before she ate any food. So I'd like for you to share, also kind of a two-part question is, first, how were you able to make that change of drinking the water? Did you have a reminder somewhere, maybe a pretty glass on the countertop, maybe a sticky note to drink the water? Sometimes when we're making changes, we might often forget. And so I'm curious, what worked for you in terms of drinking water? And secondly, how did you feel? If that was additional water than you would normally drink in a day, how did that make you feel? So all of these are great conversation starters and great things to share in this type of community. I really, my goal for the show is not really to have me talking at you all the time. And there's certainly things that you can learn from me and that I can share, but this is a community. We have a community here, and as we collaborate together, we actually elevate each other as a group. So we can all learn from each other's mistakes and we can all learn from each other's successes. So I really appreciate everyone commenting last week on their action, and I'd love to see what happens and the follow-up. So tonight we are diving into the what I had talked about last week was my number one most important thing to stay healthy is reduce your stress. And there is a worksheet for the show. If you are able to download it, I know there's the information kind of scrolling below. But if you did not have a chance to download it, please do not worry about it. Just grab a piece of paper, a notebook, a pen, whatever you have next to you, and we're going to go through it. Essentially, what does it look like? Just share that really quick with you. Just a simple worksheet. The idea behind the worksheet is that it's something that you can come back to. And you can do it on a weekly basis, a monthly basis, whatever works for you. So before we dive into reducing stress, I just want to summarize the different forms of stress. And so I like to break them up in between internal stress and external stress. So internal stress would be things like the food that you're eating, maybe the toxins that could be on the food, the chemicals, or anything that is sprayed on there. That can cause some digestion issues, especially if you're not digesting a certain type of food very well. That can cause internal stress. Also, anything that we have going on inside of us in terms of illness. So for a lot of us, we have kidney disease and some even kidney failure. But you can also have diabetes or hypertension, and all of those kind of feed into internal stress. It's something the body is constantly working with. So, and it could even be as something as simple as what you put on your skin. You know, it's really important. What we don't understand is our skin is our biggest organ in covers our whole body. And it is the protection from the outside to the inside. So anything we're putting on our body soaks directly in. So that's also a form of kind of internal stress. But external stress, which is what we're going to talk about today, is really everything that goes on around us on a daily basis. So that could be our career, our finances, our relationship, our day-to-day tasks that could be causing us stress. And this is usually the best place to start when I work with my clients, because it's an easy place to start making changes. So we'll dive right into the worksheet. And again, if you don't have it, don't worry about it. But the first step on the worksheet is to write down your major priorities. And this is not your priorities for the next week or the next month or even the next year. This is your priorities in life. What do you really want from your life? And this whole session is going to be working through this worksheet. So I'm going to share my example with you so we can kind of do this together. And so my priorities in life, number one would be my health. And I recognize that if I'm not healthy and if I'm not operating at 100%, then I can't even fathom trying to help others around me. So my health is very important. Next would probably be my family. My family is very important to me. I'm a wife, a mom, a sister, a daughter. You know, I'm all of those things. And it's important to manage my time so that I understand if I do something, it could potentially take away from family time or time that I spend on improving my health. And next would probably be my career. So not only is it something that I love and I love to help others and I love to serve, but it's also a way of life. It's a means to provide for my family and to provide for my health. So those are some of the major priorities. So you think of some and you can write those down as well on the worksheet or just on a piece of paper. But the next step in reducing stress is then to kind of take that big picture view and get a little bit smaller, a little more detailed. So in this one, the second step is how I spend my time. And this one is really great. So I left it really open-ended, and but I'll lead you through some examples. So the first one is a big time is sleeping. So how many hours a day do you sleep? And for most, it's pretty easy answer, 8, 9 hours. Some people 6. I hope we get that higher as we move further. But, and then what goes along with sleeping? You know, is there a time that you spend getting ready for bed? So this is what I usually call your power down. You know, what is that? For some people it's an hour, some maybe half an hour. But just kind of writing it down. You don't have to be exact here. Next big one would be eating. So generally maybe 3 meals a day, hopefully. And I usually, as a health coach, I usually try to steer people towards eating for about 20 minutes at each meal. It just helps reduce that stress load, and also focusing on eating. So not eating while you're working at a computer and not eating while you're watching TV, but just eating and just focusing on that. So generally, if you eat 3 meals a day at 20 minutes, that's about an hour for your day. Next would be preparing that food. You know, how long might it take you to prepare the food? And exercise or movement, as I like to call it. So how much time are you spending moving throughout the day? And then another big item would be working, you know, your career. How long do you put in? 8-hour days, 9-hour days? Maybe some of you work part-time. And what goes along with working is commuting. So adding in that time for commute and just realizing that it's there. And then the other ones, which kind of gets into, you know, social media and TV and even time that you spend on your phone. You know, have you ever thought about how much time that you do those things? I know for the iPhone, there's a way that you can look up how much time you spend on the screen. So that might be an opportunity for you to just at least realize it. We're not, like I said, we don't have to be exact here, just understanding where your time goes, essentially. And then family time. You know, what do you guys do together as a family? Maybe if you have kids, you play games or you read them books. If you don't have kids, maybe it's more along the lines of spending time with your spouse or your parents. You know, what time does that look like for you? So the third step here is now linking the two of these together. So linking your top priorities with how you spend your time. And this is the critical factor here. So this is where, if you have the worksheet, there's a little box to the left of how I spend my time. And if you want to just write down the number that corresponds to your priorities. So for example, if I said, you know, I sleep for 8 hours. Well, that's super important because that relates to my health. And my health was my number 1 priority. So if off to the side of sleeping, I would write, you know, number 1. So do this for everything that you have on that list. So sleeping, eating, preparing food, movement, family time, working. And then as we get down into the TV and the social media and working on, you know, if you come home and you look at stuff on your computer or your iPad, you know, and believe me, I do social media. It's part of my career. So I understand that there's some of that that's involved in my priorities, but there's probably some of it that's not. And not to mention it's easily distracting sometimes. But so that is the third step. Now the fourth step, which I really think we can get a lot out of this here, is our inefficiencies. And I'll preface this by saying a lot of my clients that I work with, a lot of they come to me and say, well, I don't have enough time. I can't cook dinner because I don't have any time. I can't pack a lunch with me to work because I don't have any time. And so when we talk about stress and getting healthy, there's always a time component in there. So this exercise really looks at the time and different ways that we can be more efficient with our time. And so one of these items, so the look for inefficiencies, I left this really open-ended because some of these apply to you and some of them won't. So essentially, the biggest one is switch tasking, or formerly known as multitasking. And there's been studies that show that people cannot multitask, that what they do is essentially switch task. So they work on a report for 5 minutes and then, oh, there goes an email. So then they answer that email. Well, all they're doing is they're switching. So when in the study, it says that when you are working on 2 projects at once, so switching between 2, you lose 20% of your time. This is huge, and people don't even realize that it's gone. It's just what happens when you switch, because every time you switch, you come back, you have to repopulate yourself. You have to kind of figure out where you left off and what you were talking about and what you were doing, and then once you acclimate to that, you get back into the flow. So essentially you lose about 20%. And it just increases after that. So if you're working on 3 projects, you lose 40% of your time. So switch tasking is huge, huge. The other item under switch tasking, and I sort of mentioned it earlier, but is constantly looking at emails. I know for me at work, I always have my email open, and it's a distraction, constant distraction. But even if you're not at work, maybe you have the notification on your phone that pops up. So whatever it is that you're doing, you stop, right? And you switch and you look at your phone and you answer an email or something to that nature. Maybe it's a text message or Facebook sending you, someone commented on your post. So then you kind of do that for a little while and then you switch back. So emails or notifications on your phone are kind of a big one. So to get around that, I always try to guide my clients towards scheduling that time. So have a time where you look at Facebook or have a time where you read your emails and try to do those things during that time and then focus on one thing as you move forward. One thing at a time. And that way that saves you so much time and it's kind of something you don't really notice. The other thing in terms of notifications on your phone is that you can set on your phone to remove all the notifications. And there's some that I keep, my text messages, phone calls, things like that are important. But a lot of the other stuff I've just gotten rid of, and you can kind of breathe a little bit better. You don't see those bubbles showing you that you have things to do. It helps with stress. And another way, so another time inefficiency that I find is the lack of planning. So this could go from anywhere from planning for a trip or planning your meals for the week or any other sort of plan that you have in mind. But usually when I work with clients, mostly around meals and planning meals. So when I find that clients are not planning their meals, they tend to grocery shop multiple days in the week. And that takes up a lot of time. So I find that by making a meal plan, and I do help people with meal plans. It's not a forever kind of thing, but I do help them at least in setting it up. But making a plan, getting a grocery list ahead of time, shopping once, and it saves an unbelievable amount of time. Not to mention the stress that when you come home, everything is there in the refrigerator, you know what to make for dinner, and you're golden. So that's always a good way to improve your efficiency. And the last one in terms of inefficiencies is saying yes before you evaluate your schedule. This is a big one, and I know for women it's oftentimes a struggle because we do want to say yes to everything. And what I try to coach my clients in is that it's okay to say no. And saying no to someone else is essentially saying yes to yourself. And when I say that, people are just so relaxed and so comforted by that because it's okay to say no. You only have so much time in the day, and if saying yes all the time to one area of your life, it's going to detract from other areas like health and family. And you have to weigh that in your schedule. So I'm not telling you to say no all the time. I'm just saying to evaluate your schedule before you say yes. Just really think about it, and do what feels right and good. So lastly is the action. So there is an action at the bottom of the worksheet, but essentially we are going to pick one item in our schedule that does not align with our major priorities, and we are going to remove it this week. So this is fun. So if everything listed under how you spend your time is really linked to a priority, great, you're already ahead of the game. Then your action for this week is going to be, how can you make your time more efficient? And this may mean that you're going to remove the notifications from your phone, or you're going to schedule when you're going to look at your emails. Or this could look like you're going to actually do your meal plan for this week coming up. Whatever that is, whatever action, in terms of improving your efficiency or removing something from your schedule, like I'm not going to watch TV this week, or I'm going to watch one less show this week, something like that. Comment below, and as you know, I will follow up with you next week. So overall, in summary, the worksheet is free to download forever and ever. Print it out and come back to it. This is something that you can repeat over and over, even 6 months from now, to kind of check in and see where you are. All right, well, this was a great show, and I thank you all for your time, again, spending it here with me, and I hope to hear what is something you are taking out from your schedule, or how you're going to be more efficient with your time this week. Thank you.